Welcome into another episode of the Real Wisdom Podcast, where every week I take a deep dive into the trenches of the film and television industries. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and this week I'm happy to welcome, all the way from the UK, actress Sarah Alexandra Marks. Sarah, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Derek. How are you?
Doing good. It's always interesting to interview someone overseas because of the time difference can be a little interesting, but luckily my dogs wake me up at like 4 or 5 a.m. every morning, so it's like a natural alarm clock. So I've already had like a cup and a half of coffee, so I'm
You're
oh
good to
good to go.
go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not a bad alarm clock either.
No,
The
the
dogs.
yeah no they love sleep, but they don't like me to sleep for some
Oh,
reason.
yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I feel like that's a dog's nature.
And then when you get up super early, then they'll go back to sleep on the sofa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm just like, what? Why?
Yeah.
Why? Like, you guys just love torturing me. But no,
Yeah.
I could spend the whole podcast talking about dogs. I love them.
Oh, yeah, me too. Me too.
So I'm always curious whenever I talk with someone, overseas, whether it's the UK or maybe Australia. I know the filmmaking scene can be similar but different than it is here in the States. And also, I use this analogy a lot on the show. There's not a how-to guidebook on how to get into acting or, whatever the case may be, if you want to be a director and whatnot. So how did you get to where you are? Like, what motivated you to become an actress?
Well, I'd always been interested in the entertainment industry and performing. I started at a young age with dancing, going through all the different dance styles you can imagine. My mum took me from about 3. So I just loved that feeling of being on stage and performing and learning routines. And then when I went to senior school, I got to explore drama lessons. And I quickly realized that that was something I really enjoyed, and it's where I came to life. Because in school I was actually quite shy, and I wouldn't even put my hand up to answer a question because I was I just couldn't do that. It wasn't something I did. But when it came to drama, I just came alive, and I really enjoyed myself, and I excelled at that particular subject. So I just knew it was something I wanted to explore and see where it could go. And I got my first feature film, which was a British comedy called Pulp. And I remember filming that for 2 weeks in Birmingham. And the feeling I had, it was just immense. It was like a dream. And I just knew from that moment onwards that this was the path I wanted to follow.
It's almost like the industry chooses you too. Like, you learn very quickly whether or not it's for you because of just the sheer amount of time that you have to put, into your craft, regardless of what your role is
Yep.
on set. I did find something you said interesting, that you were really shy, yet you came alive when you were acting. It's because I was of a similar aspect. In high school, I was painfully shy. And
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I started doing this podcast, was to kind of help get that out of me. And it's almost like I become a different person when I do the show. So it's always fascinating how introverts can find that outlet
Yeah,
that
through
really brings out the
creativity.
personality.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I'm still the same way. I'm not as painfully shy as I was at school, but I'm still a little bit of an introvert. But yeah, I come alive. It gives my soul this fire that just comes forth when I'm in front of the camera.
I can't explain it to people. It's just, you just do it in a
Yeah.
sense. Like, it's like whenever I hit record, and people that know me, that have listened to the show, are like, you seem like a different person.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I totally get that. I think that's really cool. So what was your first onset experience like? Had you had an inkling of what it was like? Like, did you know anyone in the industry that kind of gave you a heads up as to what it would be like? Or was it just an entirely new experience for you?
Yeah, it really was a new experience. Had, no background in being on film sets at all. So I was just, I really threw myself into it, and I went in with open arms and an open heart, and I was just ready to soak it all in. And I loved the entire experience. And I remember I would watch the other actors and, really engage with what they were doing and how they would do their scene, what they would do right before the director yells action, and what they would do when they yell cut. And I'd also watch the crew and how they interact and how their jobs went and what they did. It was just such a great learning experience for me on that film set of Pulp.
And that's what I tell people that want to get into film. Keep an eye on what everyone does, because I think you should have at least a basic understanding of what even like the PAs do, because
Yeah,
it's a film is a machine, and it only works as good as the cogs inside of it.
yeah, yeah. You're spot on with that. You're totally right.
Yeah. So after that, I know you've done shorts and you've done other features as well. What has been kind of the difference? Because I've never worked on a feature personally.
Okay.
I've done a few shorts, whether they're my own or working for other people. What has been kind of the biggest difference between those two?
Well, I think it's really the same process. It's just a feature film. It's lengthier. You're not in and out as quick as you are on a short film. And I'm actually really used to short films being shot in one day. So crazy, crazy turnarounds with a good friend of mine, Blake Ridder, and also Louis James, who produces for Ridder Films. Yeah, they shoot their short films so fast that you're in and out in a day, and they're edited within a few days, and they're out up on YouTube already streaming. But yes, so for me, a feature film, it is very different because they're normally around 2 weeks. I mean, I have done some feature films in 7 days, but normally lie around 2 weeks or more. But that's really the main difference, I would say, is the time you spend on set.
That's crazy that you've worked on shorts that have been done in just a matter of days. What's interesting about the film scene here is that when I first started working on short films, we normally do 2 days of shooting, then editing would take a month or two, maybe sometimes longer, because a lot of the filmmakers here, they have day jobs, so can't really sit down all day and
Yeah.
edit. But I have noticed that, especially with the last two that I've done, have been extended to 3, 4, sometimes 5 days, to
Hmm.
really kind of, because I've had people tell me that, oh, you should do a short that only takes a day to shoot. I come up with too much story to shoot in a day, because I that's my favorite part of the process, is coming up with the story and the
Yeah.
characters. But then
It's
it's like
always fun.
I don't want to take anything out.
Oh, absolutely. I do get that. And, if the storyline, there is more to it, then you do need more days. You want to serve the story that you've written, and you want that to come across a certain way. So sometimes they do need a more lengthier time frame. It just depends, doesn't it, really, what the genre is and how many actors you have. And really, yes, the story, how complicated it is, or how many locations you have, because you can only really get so many locations in one day.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. In mentioning, you've watched like the producers, the other crew members, other actors. Are there any other aspects of filmmaking that you're interested in doing that you
Oh,
haven't ventured into
yes,
yet?
absolutely. I've written a few short films, and I was really, really blessed with a really good team around me to actually make one of those. So I've made my own short film called Snowdrop, and that was also with the help of Blake Ridder and Louis James. I couldn't have done it without them too. So Louis really showed me the ropes in producing from the ground up, from start to finish. And Blake shot the whole short film for me, and he showed me how he edits and how he picks music, and how he picks certain shots. So I love being involved in the other side of filmmaking. I think it's also really good to learn that. as an actor and to really understand the work that goes into filming. So I loved it, and I did co-direct that, and I starred in it as well. And this is one of the ones we shot probably in about, I'd say, 9 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and I sat with Blake in his editing studio watching him do it, thinking, oh, I'll really be able to learn, how he does this and how he does that. He's just a master. This is why he was nicknamed the Ritter Machine by Louis, because he does it so fast. I couldn't even keep up, Derek. It is mind-blowing how talented that guy really is.
Usually people like that, I call them wizards. Because I'm
Yes.
like, you have to know magic in order to be able to do all of that in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, he is a wizard, a film wizard.
What was your short film about?
It's called Snowdrop, and it's based on a real life experience I had with my mum when she was sick before she passed away.
Oh, I'm
And
so sorry.
thank you. So I just wanted to write something really that I knew, and that was close to my heart, and turn that into something creative, into my passion. But it does
Yeah.
have a little bit of a twist on it. It goes a little bit sci-fi. So it's really about a mother-daughter relationship. The daughter is the carer for the mother, who is unwell with Alzheimer's, and she just doesn't remember her daughter at all. And she's just going above and beyond to find anything she can that will help bring her mum's memory back. And she comes across this underground drug that she's recommended to give her mum, and it brings her memories back, and she remembers who her daughter is, but this comes with a price. And because she's been a successful candidate to this drug, they want to use her as a lab rat. And the daughter, Izzy, there is no way that she is going to let her mother be taken away from her. She has finally got her back after all this time. So she has to fight back to keep her mum with her.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, and I've had this discussion with other filmmakers that using like personal experiences or even using like I'll say trauma, traumatic
Yeah,
experiences or feelings of loss can sometimes be a detriment, but I think the opposite. I think you can use it as I'm sure you wrote it as also a tribute
yeah,
to your
I
mother.
did.
So
Yeah,
that
you
and
can
that, I think
always
that's wonderful.
you can turn something like that into a positive, and put that creativity into it, into your emotions and your feelings. I think it's important to do that as well.
Yeah, and you can use it as a way to honor that person's legacy. And your mother, I'm sure, had a huge impact on your life. So to
Absolutely.
to to use that means to honor her, I think is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about your latest film, Escape, which by the time this airs will be streaming. So how did you get involved with this film?
It was Howard J. Ford, the man himself. He sold this movie idea and the character of Carla to me in a heartbeat, really. Um, I met Howard in Cannes at the film festival, and he said to me, I'm doing some promo filming for my next movie, Escape. Would you like to be involved? And he'd asked a bunch of people, and I said, yeah, absolutely, of course. It was my first year in Cannes at the film festival, and I thought, wow, I've been asked to do a little bit of filming, and by Howard J. Ford. This was a guy I'd heard so much about from many friends, and his latest film at the time was The Ledge, and I'd watched that on Netflix and just thought, wow, this guy is great. I'd love to work with him. So I went along and I did about 5-10 minutes filming with Howard, and it was great. And then after Cannes Film Festival, there was a few of us who met up for lunch in London, and he was telling me about the story of Escape that he's come up with, and how he had this main character, Carla, and originally he'd written her to be a ex-army woman, but now he's having these thoughts where he really thinks that she could be a nurse. So I was like totally invested in the way he was telling me this storyline and the character arc. And then he said to me, and I think you could be her. You could play Carla, and would you like to come out to the Canary Islands in 3 days and start shooting? And I said, absolutely, yes, I am in. And I went out 3 days later and we started shooting.
Isn't it incredible how things like that can just happen like that?
Yeah.
That's
That's what I love about this industry. You just never know what's going to happen day to day.
Yeah, you never know what opportunity is going to bring you. Yesterday is not going to be the same as today. Tomorrow will not be the same as today.
Yeah.
How long was the shooting process?
So we did, I think it was 2 or 3 days when we first went out to the Canary Islands. And then we did one day in the UK. And I think we had about 2 weeks for the main block of filming back in the Canary Islands. So a little over 2 weeks, really.
No,
Not bad.
yeah, no, that sounds about right. What was the biggest lesson that you took away from working on Escape?
I'd really just learned from watching Howard and how he works on set as, captain of the ship and director. He wears many, many hats on his film sets, and it's very admirable, to see the hard work that he puts in. And he always remains constant with his energy and his positivity. And his energy actually transcends to his cast and crew, which I just think is a wonderful thing. And I've just learned, always just keep focused on the end goal, and you just keep going no matter what adversities you may run into. You just have to keep going forward, like Howard J. Ford.
And that's an important quality to have as a director because, as you mentioned, you put it perfectly. He's the captain of the ship. The director is the one that everybody's going to come to.
Yeah,
Before the producer or anyone like that. Everyone's going to look to the director as the head of the
yeah,
table, essentially. So to have a constant energy like that, because no film set is perfect. There's always
hmm,
there's always some kind of troubleshooting you have
of
to do or
course.
something like that. But to have a consistent level of positivity, that speaks a lot of his character.
Yeah, that is Howard through and through.
For sure. So
Mm.
tell the listeners what Escape is about.
Well, I always say it's quite like Taken, but on steroids, just with 10 girls. And so it follows the story of these girls getting captured for sex trafficking, and they band together and find some inner strength in these depths of despair to fight back because they want to survive. So you follow these girls, really, really giving it their all and kicking ass and getting their strength together to hold on to life.
I love that. Taken on steroids.
Yeah, it's a 100% a roller coaster ride. You'll be sat on the edge of your seat, no doubt, fully invested and drawn in by the characters, shouting at the TV.
Well, and that's and it touches on something that I think has been touched on more in film, but human trafficking is a huge problem these days. So I think to use that as a means to tell a story, and it could also bring awareness to it as
Yes.
well. I think is really cool. What were some of the challenges that you had on set, or were there any challenges you had on set?
Well, I think it is a challenging task to shoot an indie movie regardless. You're always against time and money, but it's how you use that time and how that is spent. But I think that the fight choreography can be a challenge, but it was always handled with care on the set of Escape. And Glenn Savage, who was in the film, Glenn Salvage, not Savage. He's definitely not savage. He's the kindest man you'd ever meet. He was choreographing some of the fight choreo, and also Louis James, who plays Jude in the movie. He was also choreoing some of the the fight and the action scenes. But it was just handled with care, and we had time. There was no rushing with those scenes. But they're always a challenge, aren't they? Because you have to remain safe, but you also need to sell those scenes, because they play a massive part in an action thriller with, you know, horror elements. But they're always good challenges. And a funny challenge was that I had to run in heels the entire shoot, but it was okay. I managed it very, very well.
Hey, there you go. That's awesome. Yeah, the interesting thing, and I've worked on sets with fight choreography. As far as my projects, I've never had that element added. But it is interesting because you have to find that right balance of keeping the actor safe, but also making it look as real as it can. And
Yeah.
I'm sure it can be a physically demanding role in a sense. So but that's good to hear that, you know, you were able to find that balance.
Yeah, it was always handled with care, and sometimes it takes a few shots to get that looking realistic or get the right angle, you know. But I think it was achieved really, really well.
Fantastic. So as we start to wrap up here, what's next for you? Do you have any other projects in the works?
Yes, I have an action adventure film, River of Blood, coming out next year, which is also a Howard J. Ford picture. And I have a horror called The Manor of Darkness coming out next year, which is directed by Blake Ridder and produced by Lucas A. Ferrara and Louis James. And then I'm going on to the producing side of things for a couple of horror movies, one called The Feed and one called The Hag. So I'll also be starring in those, but I'm starting from the ground up producing, which is going to be really interesting because that'll be my first time doing that on feature films.
I'll say as a word of advice, a producer's job never ends.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is ongoing.
yeah, there's always something to do. But no, that's awesome that, you know, you can manage to do both. I remember taking an acting class years ago, and I quickly realized that I'm much better behind the camera than I am in front of it. So props to anyone that can do both, for sure.
It's always good though, isn't it, to try out on the other side of what you don't normally do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to throw yourself into an uncomfortable situation, and I guess then you can really understand how the actors are in front of the camera for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of what we were talking about earlier, to have an understanding of what, you know, the actor's
Yeah.
mindset is or the director's mindset is. That way, that's how a film is run efficiently,
Yep.
is to have
Absolutely.
everyone have at least a basic understanding of what everyone else's mindset is.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Do you have any advice you could give to aspiring actors and actresses?
Just keep your dream alive. Stay creative always. You know, group together with your friends. Make something. Write something, and you know, you can pick up your iPhone these days and you can shoot a really good quality movie and upload it on YouTube and share it with your friends and family and get feedback here and there, and then try it again. And just don't sit around and wait for someone to offer you a role. Just put the work in yourself, and yeah, stay persistent, never give up.
I know iPhones have been around for a while, but it still is mind-blowing to me that people make films with iPhones.
Yeah,
It
it's
makes me
amazing,
think
isn't it?
it makes me think back to, you know, when I was in class taking film classes in the early to mid 2000s, and then the iPhone comes along, and you just never knew that with this little thing here,
Yeah,
you can make something look really good.
absolutely.
It's amazing.
It is.
Do you have a website or social media you'd like to plug so the listeners can follow you?
I'm on Instagram and it's Sarah A. Marks.
Fantastic. Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to have this chat. This was great.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, Derek. It was lovely to meet you.
Absolutely. And if you want to check out the show, if you want to subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on social media, you can head over to linktree.com/realwisdompod. That's REEL Wisdom Pod. Thank you once again for listening. We'll see you back here next week for another awesome episode of Real Wisdom with Derek Diamond.